and Tom Cruz had paralleled careers. Both in their early 20s, they both shared superstardom in the 1980s. Eddie Murphy, born April 3rd, 1961, in Brooklyn, New York, the family would later move to Roosevelt, Long Island. Tom Cruise was born on July 3rd, 1962, in Syracuse, New York, to two electrical engineers. When Murphy's mother became ill, he and his older brother Charlie would be placed in foster care for 1 year. In interviews, Murphy has said his time in foster care was influential in developing his sense of humor. When Eddie was 15, he listened to Richard Pryor's comedy album, That Nigger's Crazy, which inspired his decision to become a comedian. As a child, Eddie Murphy developed playing multiple characters in imitation of his acting hero, Peter Sellers. Other early influences included Bill Cosby, Red Fox, Robin Williams, Muhammad Ali, and Bruce Lee. On July 9th, 1976, the date with which Murphy marks the beginning of his career, he performed in a talent show at the Roosevelt Youth Center, doing an impersonation of singer Al Green. Green's song, Let's Stay Together. This led to work at other clubs outside the walking distance of Roosevelt, Long Island, and required him to commute by train. To do this, he secretly skipped school, and after his mother discovered this, at the end of his senior year in high school, he was required to attend summer school in order to graduate on time. Cruz grew up in near poverty and had a Catholic upbringing. He later described his father as a merchant of chaos, a bully and a coward who beat his children. He elaborated, "My father was a kind of person where if something goes wrong, they kick you." In total, Cruz attended 15 schools in 14 years. Cruz spent part of his childhood in Canada when his father took a job as a defense consultant with the Canadian Armed Forces. His family moved in late 1971 to Beacon Hill, Ottawa. He attended the new Robert Hopkins Public School for his 4th and 5th grade education. He first became involved in drama in 4th grade under drama teacher George Steinberg. He and 6 other boys put on an improvised play to music called It at the Carleton Elementary School Drama Festival.
Well, Ms. Gonzalez, I'm afraid you haven't done anything to demonstrate you're suited to regain custody of your son. I'm afraid this request is denied.
Come here, make your money, do what you need to do, and that's just the bottom line.
Hey, who's that babe on stage?
That's Butterfly, new phenomenon.
You don't have to be something that you're not wanting to be.
Homelessness is the result of making poor decisions, Reed.
What single attribute have you acquired to offer to this young man? That is, if you were indeed to regain custody of your son.
I'm afraid of having nothing to give. And right now, I have nothing to give.
Ma'am, you can't stop here and give away stuff to the homeless people. You gotta keep going.
You stay safe out here, hon. There's a lot of human traffickers.
Hey, this old girl. Picture you sent me.
Oh yeah, that's old girl from the spot the other night.
That money didn't come from Dino, did it?
She owe me loot, yo.
I finally understand why people lose their minds out here.
Yeah, she over here like a sitting duck. Make sure your next move is your best move. So we're gonna make it happen.
Hey!
Please, God, let me grow big, beautiful wings so I can rise above this madness like a butterfly.
of 1980, Eddie Murphy would attend a cattle call audition for Saturday Night Live. After 6 auditions, Eddie Murphy would land the coveted role as a replacement for Garrett Morris. He would revitalize the show. His characters included a grown-up version of the Little Rascals, Buckwheat, host for Mr. Robinson's parody of Fred Rogers. Gumby, trademark slogan, became an SNL catchphrase, "I'm Gumby, damn it." At the age of 18, Tom Cruise, with the blessing of his mother and stepfather, would move to New York City to pursue an acting career. After working as a busboy in New York City, he went to Los Angeles to try out for television shows. He would sign with CAA Talent Agency and began acting in films. He first appeared in a bit part in the 1981 film Endless Love, followed by a major supporting role as a crazed military academy student in Taps. Later that year, in 1983, Cruz was part of the ensemble cast of The Outsiders. The same year, he appeared in All the Right Moves and Risky Business, which has been described as a Generation X classic and a career maker for Tom Cruise. In 1982, Murphy made his big screen debut in the film 48 Hours with Nick Nolte. 48 Hours proved to be a hit when it was released during the Christmas season of 1982. Nolte was scheduled to host the 1982 Christmas special for Saturday Night Live, but became too ill to host, so Murphy took over. He became the only cast member to host while still a regular on SNL. Murphy opened the show with the phrase, "Live from New York, it's the Eddie Murphy Show." The following year, Murphy starred in Trading Places with SNL alum Dan Aykroyd. The movie marked the first of Murphy's collaborations with the director John Landis. Trading Places was an even greater box office success than 48 Hours. If that weren't enough, Eddie Murphy would release Delirious, regarded as the greatest comedy concert ever captured on film. Murphy was taking Hollywood by storm. Murphy appeared in Best Defense in 1984, co-starring with Dudley Moore. Murphy, who was credited with the strategic guest star, was added to the film after an original version was completed but tested poorly with audiences. Best Defense was a major financial disappointment. When he hosted SNL, Murphy joined the chorus of those bashing Best Defense, calling it the worst movie in history. Murphy starred in the successful action comedy film Beverly Hills Cop in 1984. The film was Murphy's first solo leading role. Beverly Hills Cop grossed over $230 million at the U.S. box office, becoming the highest grossing film released in 1984, the highest grossing comedy film of all time, and the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. In 1986, Tom Cruise would land the role of Pete Mitchell in the legendary film Top Gun. His status as a superstar had been cemented. Cruise followed up Top Gun with Martin Scorsese's film The Color of Money in 1986. He paired with Paul Newman. Their chemistry won praise among critics, with the Washington Post writing, "One of the subtle achievements of both Cruise's and Newman's performances is that you feel that both of them are genuinely top-notch pool hustlers." In 1988, Cruz starred in Cocktail, a film that was a box office success, but failed with critics. His performance earned him a nomination for the Razzie Award for Worst Actor. Later that year, he starred with Dustin Hoffman in Barry Levinson's Rain Man, which won the Academy Award for Best Film and Cruz the Kansas City Film Critics Circle Award for Best Supporting Actor. In 1989, Cruz portrayed real-life paralyzed Vietnam War veteran Ron Kovic in Oliver Stone's war epic, Born on the 4th of July. This film, Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times wrote, "Nothing Cruz has done will prepare you for what he has done in Born on the 4th of July. His performance is so good that the movie lives through it." Cruz's next films were Days of Thunder in 1990 and Far and Away in 1992, both of which co-starred then-wife Nicole Kidman. As his love interest followed, Cruz would sign an exclusive deal with Paramount Pictures and dazzle them by the legal thriller The Firm, which was a critical and commercial success. In 1994, Cruz starred along with Brad Pitt and Antonio Banderas and Christian Slater in Neil Jordan's Interview with a Vampire, a gothic drama horror film that was based on Anne Rice's best-selling novel. By 1986, Eddie Murphy would sign an exclusive deal with Paramount Pictures, and he would launch Eddie Murphy Television Enterprises. Murphy would then star in the supernatural comedy The Golden Child. Although The Golden Child performed well in the box office, the movie was not as well received as 48 Hours, Trading Places, or Beverly Hills Cop. The Golden Child was considered a change of pace for Murphy because of the supernatural setting as opposed to the street-smart setting of his previous efforts. Not long after, he reprised his role as Axel Foley in the Tony Scott-directed Beverly Hills Cop 2 in 1987. After the release of Raw, his second worldwide comedy tour, Eddie would executive produce and star in the cult classic Coming to America in 1988. The film was another box office smash. Murphy would then follow up with his directorial debut with the all-star cast of Harlem Nights, working with such legends as Richard Pryor, Red Fox, and Della Reese. Murphy would then succumb to pressure to push a sequel to 48 Hours titled Another 48 Hours in 1990. Pairing up again with Nick Nolte, this film was not as well received as its predecessor. All in all, by the end of the decade, Eddie Murphy was Hollywood's biggest box office star. In 1996, Cruz appeared as super spy Ethan Hunt in the reboot of Mission Impossible, which he produced. The film was directed by Brian De Palma, and it was a box office success, although it received criticism regarding the Jim Phelps character being a villain despite being a protagonist of the original television series. The New York Times praised Cruz's performance, declaring Tom Cruise has found the perfect superhero character. In 1999, Cruz co-starred with Kidman in Stanley Kubrick's erotic and psychological drama, Eyes Wide Shut. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian praised both Cruz and Kidman on their performances, writing Cruz, in particular, lays himself open in that fiercely committed way that he tries everything as an actor. In 2000, Cruz returned as Ethan Hunt in the second installment of Mission Impossible. It continued the series' success at the box office, taking in $547 million worldwide, unlike its predecessor. It was the highest-grossing film of the year. His next 5 films were major critical commercial successes. The following year, Cruz starred in the romantic thriller Vanilla Sky in 2001 with Cameron Diaz and Penelope Cruz. In 2002, Cruz starred in the dystopian science fiction action film Minority Report, which was directed by Steven Spielberg. and based on the science fiction short story by Philip K. Dick. From 1989 onward, critical praise for Murphy's films declined, hitting a low point with the critically panned Beverly Hills Cop 3 in 1994. Eddie would then end his run with Paramount and work with other studios. Box office receipts also declined compared to his previous films, although he did find some box office success with Boomerang in 1992. Although much of the 90s did not serve well for Eddie Murphy at the box office, he would achieve climactic success with a family-friendly film, The Nutty Professor. Eddie Murphy would showcase an array of his characters and reinvent himself by going on to star in other family-friendly films, such as Dr. Dolittle, Daddy Daycare, and Shrek. The early 2000s would be a blur of flops and disappointment at the box office for Eddie Murphy. He would strike gold in 2006 with the movie rendition of the musical Dreamgirls. As soul singer James Thunder Early, Murphy won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor, as well as Screen Actors Guild Award. Murphy was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in January 2007, but lost to Alan Arkin for his performance in Little Miss Sunshine. Norbit, released in early February of 2007, but was a box office disappointment. Murphy co-starred in Tower Heist in 2011, directed by Brett Ratner, alongside Ben Stiller, Matthew Broderick, and Casey Affleck. Murphy played a thief who joins a group of hardworking men who find out they had fallen victim to a wealthy businessman's Ponzi scheme and conspire to rob his high-rise residence. It was reported in 2007 that Murphy would host the 84th Annual Academy Awards in 2012. However, he dropped out of his hosting duties on November 9, 2011, in the wake of the Brett Ratner scandal. In August of 2006, Paramount Pictures announced it was severing all ties with Tom Cruise after a 14-year relationship. November of the same year, Cruz and Paula Wagner announced they had taken over United Artists. Cruz would act as producer of the films for United Artists, while Wagner would serve as UA's chief executive. Production began in 2007 of Valkyrie, a thriller based on the July 20th, 1944 assassination attempt against Adolf Hitler. The film was acquired in March of 2007 by UA. On March 21, 2007, Cruz signed to play Klaus von Stauffenberg, the protagonist. This project marked the second production to be greenlit since Cruz and Wagner took control of United Artists. The first was this inaugural film, Lions for Lambs, directed by Robert Redford and starring Redford, Meryl Streep, and Cruz. Lambs was released in November of 2007, opening to unimpressive box office numbers. In 2015, Eddie Murphy would receive the Mark Twain Award for American Humor at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Those who honored him would be Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and Trevor Noah, just to name a few. The following year, Eddie Murphy would expand his repertoire and sign on to do a drama. The title would be Mr. Church, a live-in cook who becomes caregiver to a young girl and her dying mother. The film would die hard on streaming platforms to underwhelming reviews. Eddie would later redeem himself in 2019 with the biopic of Rudy Ray Moore, Dolomite Is My Name. the film was distributed on Netflix and received overwhelming critical acclaim. The film holds a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the critics' consensus reading, "Eddie Murphy makes Dolomite is my name just as bold and brash and ultimately hard to resist as its subject." To promote the film, Eddie Murphy would make a return to Saturday Night Live to host for their Christmas show. It would be the first time he returned since 1984. The highly anticipated show was well received and critically acclaimed. By March of 2021, Eddie Murphy would return to Paramount Studios and reprise his role of Prince Hakeem in Coming to America. The film would later be acquired by Amazon Prime due to the COVID outbreak. Tom Cruise would later return to Paramount Studios, and after more than 30 years, he would reprise his role as Pete Mitchell in Top Gun: Maverick. In 2022, Top Gun: Maverick would be released to the public. It would be critically acclaimed and garner tremendous praise. Eddie Murphy and Tom Cruise, both early risers to superstardom. They would go on to define their generation and become a source of inspiration for all youth around the world. Eddie Murphy and Tom Cruise, parallel